Hi, everybody. It's Jeff here, and another one of these videos on AI solutions and ethics. And last night, it just happened. Well, I'll say in general, there are more and more and more and more posts on LinkedIn every single day about AI topics. I mean, it's just going crazy. So this video series is actually at the right time because I'm addressing it. It's just I've been a few days late trying to get them up to YouTube because the network here, the internet network here just sucks. so I've already made these videos for the past 2 weeks and I'm the week and a half, but I just haven't been able to get it uploaded because they're so slow. But it seems like the network's a little bit faster right now. So last evening, yesterday afternoon, there was a session by Common Sense Advisory. I'll kind of mention this here. To give a shout out to them because they're covering this topic. They did a special kind of a panel session on the seven, if I get this right here, the 7 trends for globalization in 2023. And so there were, seven of their analysts. It was Don and Arl and Allison that were all, and I think Rebecca was handling all the questions, the Q&A. And they were covering a lot of the different topics for 2023. They're kind of on the hot topic during this whole language industry. For the language industry area, and it was really interesting because they were covering a lot of this. Some of these. The whole thing was Chat GPT and AI and all this, and it was just there. And so there's some, it's really worth watching, going up and trying to find that, if it's going to be recorded here. It might be recorded. I'm sure. I attend the session, so I'll get see if there's a recording afterwards. They'll probably post it. But I think it's really worth it for people to watch that because there were some, lots of great questions. And some of the things I'm actually talking about the series, I asked the questions during the session to get their point of view because I'm addressing in my series here about what I'm talking about. So I said that I'd mention them. I mentioned this because we got overlapping things, and this is good to see that various people in the industry are talking to the same things in parallel. This confirms that there are things that are kind of their trends are happening, right? So I want to give a shout out to them. One of the topics, the key topic that was really there that I haven't addressed yet, is the data reliability and trustworthiness, and that is really an interesting one. And I mentioned who was in the panel because Arl Lamel brought up this topic. Well, he mentioned the topic, some examples of this, and he said that what he was doing, he found either something he did or someone else did on using Chat GPT by OpenAI. They said that he looked up, or someone looked up Arl Lamel, and found that there was a generated text about Arl being a university professor, I think, in Sweden, and having a bunch of publications from a university in Sweden. And he said the funny thing about that, what he heard about that, or he did it, was that it sounded really interesting. It sounded like it was true. It sounded like it was convincing. But the thing is, it had nothing. He doesn't teach there. Never has, and hasn't done any of those publications. But it sounded convincing, persuasive. And he says that's a good example of data trustworthiness or reliability. Is that it sounds like it could be true, but it's not. It's just completely off because it's the wrong person. So I think this is something that, and this kind of had there was a stream of this discussion about evaluating data, and then this can get into the whole thing of data annotation. Okay, this can get the whole thing of data, validation, verification. You can think about this. It can apply to machine translation, to post editing. Like you got to clean up the stuff if it's not true, or some things are off. You got to clean them up, right? So the quality of the data. This is all about data quality. And it's not just the language industry. Okay, this affects everything. We could, if you attach, and I'll get into this. If I came from the telecom field, right? So also I worked in that for a while, and if you got all the handshake data, the phones, what happens is your phone has a handshake with antennas, right? And that's the data's come from a server to antenna, and then the antenna sends a signal to your phone, and then you have this data, and each phone that's in the phone conversation is doing this, right? But if you got wrong data or wrong identifiers, and a telephone data is probably the most, some of this, it's really highly annotated data because every single point in the server, again, the workflow has identification pointers, right? So I don't want to go into the technical aspects of this, but I just kind of want to indicate this. There's a lot of traceability in all this, right? This is to make a phone call to work, okay, just a phone call or an SMS to work. Um, but if you got some point where if you're now, what you can do is you can generate synthetic data, right, to test these systems. But if you start generating wrong data, or if you start generating wrong data of wrong people's phone numbers or people's names with phone numbers, then you try to make a thing to make a phone call. You call the wrong person, right? So this is where, and then you could actually call and try to introduce yourself. The stupid thing, this can get in all kind of lawsuits, right? If you have in a real situation, someone tries to call another person, gets the wrong person, doesn't know, and starts introducing themselves on the topic. You called me about this, that, and then that reveals stuff that you don't want to tell the person that doesn't know it's the wrong person, right? This gets into a whole thing of the problem of data reliability and trustworthiness. And this goes beyond just, well, it's the wrongly named professor of a publication. That's probably not so critical, but there are lots of other critical things. And you can think of all other kinds of critical things if you're using data, if you're using AI for like NASA for space administration or space agency stuff, right? I could think of all the fields I've worked in and I've worked in like automobile and mechanics, worked in that field, worked in some Airbus kind of things, projects too. So if you do the wrong stuff, you generate the wrong stuff, and you generate the wrong data to do things and give test scenarios to people to attach, to install electrical harnesses in the airplanes, right? And they do it the wrong way, and it gets sent out. It doesn't work, and then crashes. People die. And it goes all to get back. That was actually that test procedure for installing that electrical harness was generated by AI. You can imagine the lawsuits coming from that, okay, for all the killed people. I mean, this is where the data reliability is really important, and having human beings kind of testing that, or I want to say only human beings. You can have test procedures in place where other checks can be done by other software programs. And then you can have some people checking that, right? Again, it's not that it has to be fully human, manually checked and verified data. It could be done in ways that allow people to do samples testing and sample verification and checking things. I mean, there are ways to do this, right? So again, this is not to make this a long video about how to have data reliability, but I think this is one area where maybe I'll do some other sub videos on this. I'm not sure. We'll have to see, but it's depending on how all these different topics happen, and I see what's out there. But I think that the data reliability and trustworthiness is it's a key thing, and this fits into the whole video I did on AI, the AI ethics on IP, intellectual property. This is going to really get into that. So I mean these two things are very related. And in some ways. So they're different, but they're one impacts the other very much, or could both directions. So thanks again, Common Sense Advisory, for research for your, the panel. I think that gives us a lot of great ideas, and we'll see how this happens in 2023 with these trends, right?